started, and then I press again share screen. Now, David, I thought I will show first Gaudi, and then you'll follow with Alvaro Siza, and then after you, I will say something about Alvaro. Is it okay?
¿Eh? Sí, es otra corrección, pero ya no voy a entrar.
I hear some background noises. I don't know what is going on.
Perdido.
Okay, so
además
I'm ready whenever you want.
So what I said is I will start with Gaudi because okay. Then you will follow with Alvaro Siza, and after you I will say something about Siza too. Is it okay?
No problems.
Ahora se ha puesto de moda, tú. Todos.
I hear voices, you know.
Correcciones por Skype, por Zoom, vaya.
Yeah, the thing is, I have to now to turn off that microphone, and
Ay, pobre, no debe ser muy mayor, pero no entiende nada.
Where is it? Okay. Okay. All right, so I will start with Antoni Gaudi. Okay, Microsoft Gaudi AA. Okay. All right. So slideshow from the very beginning. Okay, do you hear me? Hello?
Yes, Dan, we can hear you.
Okay, and do you see the page Antoni Gaudi, the servant of God?
Yes.
Hello, Dan. Yes, we do.
Okay, all right. So I will try to be quick, although the subject is huge. But anyway, what I didn't write here is when he was born. He was born in 1852, I think, and died in 1926. And 7 years after Gaudi died, Alvaro Siza was born. So there was a difference of 7 years between the death of Gaudi and the birth of Alvaro Siza. And of course, Gaudi was born in Spain, in Catalonia, and then Siza in Portugal. You know him. I mean, what you do not know perhaps is, let me see, yeah. I will just have this short text that Antoni Gaudi was an architect, of course, from Catalonia, Spain, who belonged to the modernist movement and is famous for his unique style and highly individualistic designs. As an architecture student at the Escola Técnica Superior de Arquitectura in Barcelona, from 1873 to 1877, Gaudi achieved only mediocre grades, but did well in his trial drawings and projects. After 5 years of work, he was awarded the title of architect in 1878. As he signed Gaudi's title, the rector, I imagine, declared, "Who knows if we have given this diploma to a nut or to a genius? Time will tell." And what is not written here is that apparently to this, Gaudi replied, I mean, he told a friend, "These people think that if they gave me a diploma, they made me an architect." So he knew deep within himself, in his soul, that, you know, if we can say so, God made him an architect. So the newly named architect immediately began to plan and design and remain affiliated with the school his entire life. Okay. Now, apparently the Sagrada Familia started, you know, before any other project by him. I don't know exactly how. Maybe the building was already started by other people and he contributed in some form. But in a chronology of his works, the first one that is shown is also the last one, meaning the Sagrada Familia, which continues to this day. And you know, I will come back to this in a more extensive way. You know what Sagrada Familia is. Now the first building, El Capriccio, which is is considered a very eclectic building. very interesting, actually. You know, that tower is impressive, and the building is very colorful, and you know, I think it has qualities, although it is his earliest work. Ceramic tiles of a figurative nature, but still impressive. Very colorful building, a little bit maybe too exotic for our taste today, but interesting. So this was his first, and maybe the work, the name is appropriate. It has to do with capriciousness. So different from Alvaro Siza. Incredible, the difference between the two, and they are born in the same day, but of course not the same year. He couldn't do this work without great craftsmen, obviously. Actually, this corridor, and it's too bad, I don't know if David has images with the building in Berlin by Alvaro Siza, but there are striking similarities. There is such a corridor lit on one side in Berlin. Now, the next building, Casa Vicens, I don't know if I pronounce well, an impressive palace itself. And you can see here the influence of the Arab, you know, Muslim, you know, of Islam, of the Arab culture, you know, this kind of transition from the verticality of the walls to the ceiling is to be found in you know, Islamic architecture. Maybe he visited Alhambra, I don't know. Anyway, there is this influence in this culture, and it is shown in Gaudi's work as well. Very chromatic, very rich, very the tectonics of the building are incredible. I mean, truly, if we compare our works with his work, we realize two different worlds, very different worlds. We don't think, I mean, you cannot strip away the ornaments from his buildings. It's impossible. They are part of the integrity of the building. Interiors are also amazing. And he was a very young man then. Now, an episcopal palace, he was still a young man. This is more austere in a way. But anyway, I personally don't like, you know, this kind of castles, but, you know, it is a castle, what can you do? And also a church or a chapel. I don't think he was totally himself here, but he had to respond to a certain program. I mean, the building is very different from the previous one. But the basements and I guess, you know, it is the basement are impressive. And actually, in his case, the basements and the top floors are very interesting. In a way, more modern because they are stripped of decorations, ornaments, and the structure is usually very interesting. Now the Güell pavilions, he first built these pavilions like smaller structures. Here is an incredible gate, truly incredible. I mean, it is an artwork in itself. Quite amazing. The buildings, I don't know, they look like gingerbread houses. Now the Palau Güell, which again has these incredible structures in the lower level. I love those columns very much. But everything here is so rich. And, you know, these are works that are maybe less known that, you know, his so-called masterpieces, but they are masterpieces themselves. I mean, look at the richness of this facade. It's incredible. And the interior as well, equally impressive. He was no doubt a great architect, a truly great architect. I mean, almost everything he touched became exceptional. Now, Theresian College, 1888, 1889. And he benefited, of course, of great craftsmen. You know, I imagine he didn't do working drawings for every single detail. He probably improvised, you know, on the building site. When you have great craftsmen, then you can do that. If you don't have them, it's impossible. Another building by him, the same kind of a castle, you know. I don't know, these are a little bit funny, but anyway, he did them. Fortunately, there are interesting details, you know, that kind of make you forget the whole, which is as it is. It looks almost like, I don't know, I don't like this building very much, but he did it. Now, in Tangier, this was not built, just a project. They are in chronological order, so you know, that's why it is here now. Again, Güell, he did various things for this you know, famous name connected with him. These are kind of interesting, you know, they are medieval in a way, and they almost expressionistic. They make me think of the School of Amsterdam a little bit. He also didn't work alone, at least, you know, in his later years. He had helpers, so to speak, and one of them is very well known. Huhol, if I pronounce well his name, or Jujol. And I have some images with his work as well. I mean, when you work for such an important architect and a famous architect, you know, there are all the chances in the world that you live in his shadow. But there were creative forces who helped him. He didn't work alone. The richness of the forms is just incredible. Casa Calvet, you know, he also is a you know, synthesis of various arts. You know, it's not just architecture. You have sculpture, you have you know, the colors, the ceramic works are less present here, but he used later in his work very creatively ceramics. I mean, just the parapet of this balcony is an artwork in itself. Now, for our taste, this might appear to be a little, you know, heavy, so to speak, but I don't know. It's rich. It is rich. Another structure that is urban, but also has this medieval look, you know. But I'm amazed at the brickwork is incredible, you know. Even though here it is more civilized than what so-called civilized compared to what he did at Park Güell, and particularly the chapel. The Güell Chapel, which is, I think, for me, it is for me, it is his greatest work. I like it very much, besides Sagrada, of course, and a few other things. But look at the you know, these art interventions, the stained glass windows, or you know, all kinds of. I mean, it is surreal. For us today, it is surreal, although we do have discos and all kinds of fantastic environments, but still his architecture is, I mean, you wouldn't expect so much color when you look at the building from the outside, but inside is a different story. And again, here the nobility of the structure, and it's very well done. Park Güell. Now here, as you know, it's you know, a universe in itself. You can find almost anything here: decorative arts, you know, sculpture, ceramic works, you name it, you find it. There is a risk, though, you know, to maybe at times is, but I don't know how he controlled the whole vision to be implemented as he had it, because obviously here some people had a certain freedom of expression, those who built it. Very courageous and very creative, and not afraid to challenge himself with rusticity, with you know, rusticity. I'm referring to rustic, but also to rust, in the sense that he was not afraid of the passage of time and the dialogue between the materials he used and time, or aging. But he used, this is a very earthy architecture. I mean, for us today, it would be almost impossible to do working drawings for such a project in this way. It is fantastic. It is a fantastic architectural work. I will come back to this. I'm not reading this text, but this is good because you see the, the site from above. I'm not spending too much time because there is a very ample material, and also David has to show things, and then I'll show also something about Alvaro Siza. It's impossible to talk about these two architects, in 2 hours. It's just, I don't think it's possible to do justice to them. But this is more like, remembering them and inciting ourselves with an overview of their work. He could be at times a little bit eclectic, like here he is, but anyway. Now, this is a lesser known work, and it's actually interesting. The gardens, Artigas gardens, kind of similar, but still different from what we saw previously. Nature is wilder here than at Park Güell. It's not inside the big city as Park Güell is. But it's interesting how he, introduces figurative elements and works with them with stone. So you have the abstract art of architecture, and then you have figuration, and they intermingle. Now the famous Casa Mila, we all know it. I visited myself once or twice. It is a story in itself. We can talk one evening just about this building and 15 minutes about the door. Why did he do it this way? Because I keep thinking that the door is an event, is the transition between the outside of the building and the inside, and it should be treated as an event. Something Peter Zumthor didn't do in his chapel, as I commented maliciously 2 or 3 days ago. Look at the parapet of the balcony, it's incredible, what can we say? A special sensitivity, and we salute him for this. And he didn't work with the fluidities that are allowed to us because of the new technologies. He didn't have computers and so on. It was all done, manually. Even more incredible. And what is on the terrace is surreal, totally. This celebration of the meeting between the building and the sky through these chimneys that are very sculptural, and the whole symbolism I should have spent some time analyzing or learning, but they are incredible. We don't think like this any longer. For us, chimneys are, just functionalist objects, but that was not the case for him. It's a great building, no doubt. And I think Alvaro Siza was right. People who say that architecture is not an art just say it so they excuse themselves for a lesser quality of the building. It is an art. there are many confused people, it's true. And I tell them all the time, well, if it wasn't an art, why is architecture present in every history of art? So many books, but very, very, very rarely architecture is not there. Most of the time, architecture is there and from the very first pages. But you can take any history of science and architecture is not there. So isn't this clear that architecture has to do with emotions, with aesthetics, with beauty, and as such, it is an art, but it is a special kind of art, it's true. I don't think Brancusi, the sculptor, was correct when he said that architecture is an uninhabited sculpture. I think architecture is a little bit different than that, but it is an art. At best, it is an art. Maybe even John Ruskin was right when he said, you know, a great architect should be also a good painter or a good sculptor. Probably. You saw Alvaro Siza, he wanted to become a sculptor and then he settled for architecture. But he had and has the soul of an artist. Another great building, as you well know, even more fantastic somehow than the other one. But, you know, when he built, I think there were other architects. I only know of Jujol or Jujol, I don't know how to pronounce his name. In Catalan, maybe it's Jujol, but in Spain, it's probably Jujol. Who was also great, and so. Pardon? I'm sorry?
Sobre o Gaudi. O Gaudi.
Okay. I don't know what to do because I have to stop this in order to mute the microphone of that person. Maybe he can do it himself. Well, there is a background noise, and this disturbs the presentation. What should I do? I have to. I hate this.
Carry on then.
Okay, I carry on. It's you know, a fairy tale building, really. Courtyard is, you know, no, I have to turn off the microphone because I cannot concentrate because I'm not reading, I'm improvising, so I have to be kind of, you know, intense and careful. No. Please forgive me. I have to turn off the microphone. I have no choice. There are already 20 people here. So, Eduardo, sorry, Eduardo, I mute you. Okay, now I start again. How do I do this? How do I do this now? I still hear. Okay. How do I do this? Share screen. Okay. Sorry, from current slide. Okay. So he was quite courageous. I mean, you know, using this kind of tiles, you know, to cover the walls, the exterior walls of that courtyard is incredible. I mean, we would use it in a bathroom inside, but to do it outside shows great courage. And look at the tiles, you know, I mean, they're exotic as they are because, you know, the surface has fluidity, but also the colors, you know, they change colors. It's absolutely incredible. Who do something like this today? Not not many people could afford it really, because we don't have the craftsmen. Anyway, but there is also, some modernity, as you can see, where the ornaments are absent, but still is impressive, the structure. Everything is impressive. In a ludic way, in a fairy tale-like way, but still is unique, no doubt, Gaudi. No, this is, sorry, that was a mistake. We'll arrive here. Now, we are at a building, a project that was not built. It was meant for New York City, a big hotel attraction. And I'll show you a few images when I end this presentation about this. This building, I think, irritated a lot Frank Lloyd Wright. He had some very malicious remarks in general about Gaudi, but I think he had in mind this building, which was supposed to be taller than the Tour Eiffel in Paris. A hotel for New York City, for Manhattan, but was not built. Now we arrive at the schools of Sagrada Familia. I just have one image. Is a building that, is shadowed by the famous one, but I'm impressed by the fact that he also was able to handle, modest, so to speak, programs. And I think this is very nice that he was able to handle both, so-called terrestrial projects and celestial ones. We come back. I have 2 or 3 projects where I return after a while because I think they are important. Park Güell again. And now this building, unfortunately, unfortunately, it was not completed. And but I love this. To me, this is I think is actually the best work by him. I'm subjective in what I say. Too bad he couldn't finalize it. This is a drawing. I don't think there are too many drawings of him, but this is one of them. What was built was just the bottom that is colored, and the silhouette of the whole building you can see approximated in this modern sketch. But inside is architecture at its best, I think, and it is both nature and architecture, and it's both primitive and sophisticated. It's very powerful, I think, and I think if we are to use a word which I hesitate to use, genius, I think it can be used. This is even difficult to draw, but to build it, very nice work. And too bad just a fragment of the whole building was built, but it's enough for the spirit, as an architect I admire said. In Persepolis, there are just a few scattered columns, but for the spirit is enough. The same we could say here, for the spirit is enough. What was built already is enough for the spirit and for our imagination. Crypta Gaudi, it is part of the UNESCO heritage. Very powerful and sensitive, and a surreal work which transcends time. You cannot say that that work was built. I don't know when. It could have been built 5 centuries ago or 5 centuries from now. In the future, it is timeless. Now, I think this study is actually for Sagrada Familia, where he studied, the statics of the building. He was also we could say an engineer. But what a sensitive and complex engineer. Casamila again. Now we look also at the drawings. Yes. I mean, with our mentality today, we would say, you know, why did he complicate himself? But this kind of question should not be addressed to an artist, you know, because art in itself is some kind of a complication. Why do we need it? Well, could life have any meaning without it? It's debatable, I know, but we depend on art, really. Without it, life could be almost unbearable. Now, in comparison with him, of course, Alvaro Siza is so very different. But today, when I prepare the material about Alvaro Siza, I realized that in his gentle, discreet way, he truly is a great architect. There is poetry in his buildings, although they are so very different from Gaudi's. You would never see something like this at Alvaro Siza, but he has his own language, so to speak. You know, Peter Eisenman said, learn a language, make your work a language. And he gave us an example, I think sarcastically. He said, look at President Trump. He has his own language and he became the president of the United States. Meaning, you know, if you have a language that is well developed, an expressive language, you could even lie with it. But I hope that language can be used in a more noble and truthful way than the example given by Peter Eisenman. And now we arrive at the famous last work, Sagrada Familia, which is still in the process of becoming. And I'm very moved by the effort that the city makes to continue the work of Gaudi and in a creative way. It's a splendid collective effort and it's probably unique in the world. I mean, in this, Barcelona is asserting itself as a special place because only in the Middle Ages we had this kind of collective effort to, you know, to collect all the wills, the individual wills of the citizens to contribute somehow to participate in the building of the big cathedral. And here is even more moving because it is actually a continuation of the work of an individual. So it is an impressive collective effort and should be appreciated as such, and should be appreciated that it's not a pastiche, it is not a passeist work. The new interventions reflect the time we live in, and it's good that they do so. So they respect the spirit of the work that Gaudi started, but they also accept the time we live in, and that's very good. So I guess in 2026 it will be so-called finished. I don't know, but it doesn't matter. It is impressive as it is. It doesn't actually really, I mean, I don't think it matters so much if it's so-called finished or not. A cathedral maybe is never truly finished. But you can see it is the heart of the city, you know, and yeah, it is a city that that is united somehow in this very building. And inside it's an architectonic forest of the highest order, and I didn't visit it since they started to build again, but I imagine it's a fantastic interior. I mean, I see it is a fantastic interior. I don't have to imagine it, really. I saw the building before it started, and it was amazing. But now it's probably even more so. This is the part that Gaudi made during his lifetime, and it's huge. You know, it's huge, but it's also so creative and so different from other, religious buildings. And look at the ceiling. You know, it's. Pardon? Anyway, yeah, the cathedral was supposed to be some kind of, I mean, it is the house of God, but the analogy or the metaphor of the forest was often employed because of the structure of the Gothic cathedrals, and we see the forest here as well. Sculptures, sculptures that are modern, but they are figurative, but they are modern, and it's very good that the decision taken by those responsible for the project are correct. They developed the work of Gaudi, but with the tools and with the artistic disposition of the present, and it should be so. They didn't try to mimic, because the body of the cathedral is alive, and as such, it receives any kind of intervention that is truthful and that tells the truth about the time and the place where it takes place. So in this building coexist sculptures that were done, 100 years ago, and with those that are done today, and it's fine. And then you have such this interior, which looks, almost futuristic. Bravo to the city of Barcelona, and bravo to the talented people who work here for years now, and they will continue to work. This is the old part done by Gaudi. I used to know how to read those numbers. They appear also in Dürer's engravings in the Melancholia. I think there is you can add, doesn't matter, horizontally, vertically, and even diagonally, and you get the same number, something like this.
33 then.
33 there. Yes. Okay, so we are approaching the end of this presentation. It's really a very sketchy presentation of the work of a giant in architecture, but we commemorate him today in this way, and maybe he smiles wherever he is. Because again, this is not a centennial or some so-called important celebration. But I think every birthday is important, so we celebrate him. This is what a cathedral should be. The summum of the efforts of a city. And as such, this cathedral in Barcelona deserves our applauses. And if you want, I'll say a few words about this very important architect who worked for and with Gaudi. And he's less known because, yes, he had the misfortune to work for Gaudi, but he is very good. So in a few images, I'll just show what this important architect did by himself. His contributions to the buildings by Gaudi are acknowledged. This is his own, this is a building by him, and I love that parapet of the stair is excellent. At times there is even a book which I actually have, and it can be purchased, is you know, kind of a recent book. I'm not sure how to read Jujol or Juhol, but anyway. This is a church built by him, more modest, of course, than what Antoni Gaudi did, but has a lot of quality itself. Then another one taught by also by him. And there were probably other architects worthy of our interest and curiosity. So, you know, it wasn't just Gaudi, but in this case we have Gaudi and Jujol. This is a building on the diagonal, the famous avenue in Barcelona, in the corner of a street that intersects the diagonal avenue, and it's very modern and, you know, kind of adventurous. I like it very much. It seems an architect has his luck to live there, you know. Anyway, that's the building, and it's done just by him, by Jujol. Gaudi had no presence here at all. And this is also by him, a little different. Anyway, I think this is the last image. Yes. So I end it with Gaudi, and now David, if you want, I'll give you the right to use the screen. Let me see, I stop share, I think, or no, I click on participants at David. Okay, just a second, I know how to do this, make host. All right, do you want to change the host? Yes, I do. Okay, so now, David, you can start showing your material about Alvaro Siza.
Okay, I will just share the screen first.
Yes, please. I hope you can do it.
Should be fine.
Dan, I think you need to stop sharing the screen before.
No, I see he entered. It's fine. Thank you for.
Can you guys see my screen?
I do see it.
Yeah.
Everybody sees it. You all see it, right?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Yes.
So you are the boss, David.
Well, kind of. So everyone can hear? Okay, I'm going to start. So basically, Dan was doing a presentation about Gaudi, a little bit more extensive than mine. It was about general works of Gaudi. I focus on a different aspect through Siza's work. So basically, what I suggest with this presentation, it was to do Siza's walkthrough to the buildings, some of them, and I choose 5 of the buildings that I visit, or complexes in this case as well. And we'll give a personal interpretation as a user and also as an architect user of the spaces. Of course, I will do an interpretation of the building itself as architectural analysis, but mainly as a user of the building and the senses that one has when he's entering some of their buildings. So I will start now with a picture of Siza. It's not exactly a building. I think that this picture was taken for one of the Venice Biennales, one intervention there, if I'm not mistaken. If not, probably it was one of the last works that he has had in China. I'm not sure, to be fair. I tried to find the source of it, but I couldn't find. But I don't know, I always figured out that Siza at least appears to have a down-to-earth look towards architecture and the way that he goes and walks through the buildings that he's designing. And I don't see it exactly as a god of architecture like all or almost all of the architects see him. Of course, he has magnificent buildings, he's a magnificent architect, but I don't exactly believe in gods in architecture because I think that all architects can be replaced in time. Not saying that is the case, but eventually all architects will be superseded. So I will start with this project that was the first project that Siza had, let's say, full authority on the office that he used to work after finished school. So he used to work in close partnership with Fernando Tavera, that was basically his master at university, and then he worked for him for quite some time and did several collaborations with him. And this is a competition that they won, and Siza had the luck to basically be one of the collaborators to catch the project and to work on it and to gain ownership over the project. Since Fernando Tavera at the time was always traveling with CM events led by Corbusier, and it was most often leaving all his collaborators with some projects in hand, and this was one of them. So this is one project that is located in Lessa da Palmeira, in Matosinhos, that is a town close to Porto, a little bit north. And as you can see, surrounded by that red circle, it's the location of the project, which is a project that is well integrated, in my opinion, with the surroundings. And to be fair, when you cross by car or bicycle or even by foot, if you don't exactly know what to look for, although you have a search that has a little bit more protuberance than that project next to it, you stumble into some rocks, some stones on the landscape that always had been there. You see the sea, and you start to see some kind of a construction around there. And if you start looking closely, you can see that oh, there is something there, and looks at the first look like a traditional Portuguese construction. A lot of white around it. The roof is basically the same that you can find all over the country, but there is something about it. Every single detail that you find about this house, this tea house, it's quite impressive because every single detail looks to be carefully put it in place and to give to the visitor and to the users a sense of belonging to the space that it's not common to see or to have it on a place that is not your home, your house. And as I said, you can see that is almost a complete mix and match with the landscape, where you cannot exactly sometimes understand where one starts and another one ends. And even from the inside, when you enter, you have the warm feeling through the materials that were put in place. But you also can see, like from that window there, the sea and the surroundings that involve the tea house. All the materials and all the light treatments of the house were carefully put in place and gives the habitant a notion that everything was to take care of it. As you can see, while you are there, you're not exactly only entering an architectural place, but you are also leaving the sea next to it. You have a sense of belonging not only to the architectural place where you are that you are doing, but you are also leaving the space next to it. Of course, most can say, oh, this is just another restaurant or another shop next to the sea. But it's the care that the design of this piece of architecture was done that distinguished this from most of other pieces that you can find next to the shore in Portugal or any other country. And again, these are just some other views from different aspects from the house, the tea house. And you can see that all the furniture was well picked and carefully put in place to have harmony within the light, shadow, and the materials that make the architecture what it is. All the openings were carefully put in place, as later on you can see through a section that will show more or less how they are open. And again, you can see that I'm not going to compare exactly these to Frank Lloyd Wright, because they are completely distinct architects in my view. However, you can see that from the Falling Water house from Frank Lloyd Wright, that you have almost a complete integration with the nature, and one nature or one architecture would not be offended by the other. Again, you can see the white and the typical rooftop of Portuguese architecture reflected into this architecture, and as a kind of vernacular language, although it's a little bit more think through than normal, typical, traditional vernacular house. And as I said before, you can see the search in the background, and you can see the colors as well of that building and the front building that is the tea house. Everything is a mix match and well integrated with the surroundings. Again, you basically go through to the streets, and sometimes if the weather doesn't allow, if it's not clear sky, you almost don't see the house, the tea house. You almost don't see the sea, you just see the stones. So you have almost a perfect harmony between the surrounding environment and the construction put in place. If you see this picture, for example, as a section through to the place, you can see that the landscape and the architecture put in place follow the same section line, almost in almost any elevation. This image, for example, here, every single time that I look at it, I see that chimney there as just a massive piece of stone, although it's white and you can see that the color is not right, comparing with the surrounding pieces of rock and stone. You can see that are just another volume that is put in place and is quite close to the ones that are naturally placed there. And every single window that is toward the sea, it has a welcoming pass from it. You can almost feel that you are inside of the sea. And this is basically what you can see from the street when you get close. Besides that, you only see almost a 10 line of a rooftop, and you don't exactly know what it is. I think that this sketch, the man there almost looks surprised about it, like someone says to me before, looking at the piece of architecture that is going to stumble upon it. These are just some drawings, some organization plans. And you can see that it's organic plan. It's not something that is barely functional, but the plan and the lines of architecture that lead the design of it really integrated into the place. Again, the section, you can see that this has like some kind of formal steps that lead from the top until the bottom of the rocks that are close to the sea. So the next one is the one that is considered the first project from Siza as a lead architect that gave him a lot of recognition as well. And he's also the only Portuguese project of architecture that is figured within a book that marks the 100 best projects of the 20th century, and all the works of architecture within it were selected by former Pritzker winners, and this is the only Portuguese project that is there. It's also located on the same town, and you can see that the tea house was here, where you can see the mouse cursor, and here is the other one, the swimming pools. And a closer look, you can see that basically you have the ties pushing the swimming pool almost, but he always resembles there as only a piece of line, and was almost not developed the project in a way that almost completely integrates with the line of the shore. Of course, as concrete construction to make the pool be what it is. However, you can see again there is a care with the nature and the surroundings, all the environment upon the implementation of the piece of architecture that distinguish this work from others. And again, when you are on the street, you basically, if you look at these persons here, you basically have not even 1 meter of upstanding building from the street. So from the street, you cannot exactly see the building. You only see the sea. And the point of these projects, at least in my view, it's to not obstruct any view from the sea, because what is important here is the shoreline of the sea and the views through it. And then the building is completely integrated there. As soon as you start to entering it, you go through some paths, some ramps, and see through the building within it. Again, this is a reverse view from the entrance. And as soon as you start to entering the building, you basically have some paths that lead either to the swimming pool or to the lockers, giving the visitor and the user a sense of discretion, because the pool is not next to it right away, but also a sense of how can I say, of a good surprise in the end of any corridor that he may encounter. You have access through the corridors for the swimming pools and also the lockers, as well as some small cafeteria that is there. And you can see that the materials, shoes were quite similar to the ones that you can find on traditional constructions around the sea, at least from the time, with timber and concrete, giving the project organicity through the times. So the concrete and timber are two materials that really age well if they are well kept, and the nature kind of overcomes and takes power over it, giving a nice patina over all of these materials. So after all of these labyrinthic almost, but always linear corridors, and if you need to go to the lockers that are a little bit more darker, this picture, to be fair, is a little bit more darker than it is in reality. You have a little bit more light. It's more dramatic than it should. You encounter the sea again. So you see the sea from the street, then temporarily you are blind, you cannot see the sea, and then you have that wonderful surprise of seeing the sparkling water again in the end of your pass through the building. And I don't know if you guys managed to see that on these pictures, but there is always a care about not exactly destroying the rocks and all the stones, all sand that was in place. Try to just touch whatever is essential to touch and place concrete where it is essential to keep the idea of a pool, to keep the concept of a pool working, but always having like a rock kind of building almost done by concrete, and the rocks of the surrounding that give birth to these swimming pools that are coming from the sea. Of course, all the shadows effects and so on, for any architect that likes to duel and to play with shadow and light, this is one of the projects that one must see, one must enter. And it's always, at least for me, an inspiration, how he can master the light and the shadow in every single project that he designs. Again, a nice combination of the natural resources in place and the organicity of the concrete that's so well aged with some patterns on it. Like you have the contrast of the dark of this path, and then you find the light next to the sea. It's, in my opinion, one of the most poetic projects of Siza's. Although it's not one of the biggest ones, I think it's a milestone on his career for sure. Again, this is more my opinion than any other thing, but at least it's what I read as a user and as a user architect of the space. This picture here I found very interesting because the stone was there, and instead of removing completely the stone, he just appropriated of it, and for sure he removed parts of it. I'm not sure that he was able to keep everything, but looks like he has a care on the natural resources on the place, and he builds always around them. And again, the simplicity of the drawings, both plan and section. And I'm going to move to the different projects. So this project here starts to be as a social housing in a post-fascist period, kind of post-fascist period of the Portuguese history, where several housing projects were built around the country, and for the first time, at least in Portugal, public consultation regarding housing projects were put in place. Although it's a little bit difficult, this consultation project with all the population, I choose to believe that he managed to get most of it, and a lot of inputs from the local population that was going to habit the place were were taken under consideration. Nevertheless, in nowadays, the project was concluded in the beginnings of 2000s. Some other parts that were never constructed in the 70s, and since well, Siza is one of the rock stars architects of the world. He's quite famous. Everyone, if has the chance, at least in the world of architecture, and can afford it, will want to live in one of his houses or one of his designs. And most of the places were just to sell for the highest bidder. And you have a lot of studios of architecture, design studios, even Airbnbs working through the houses that by nature was socializing. So this is the location of the complex, the housing complex. It was a plot that was basically almost empty, and was one of the urban voids to be filled. Of course, has some kind of minor constructions there, but nothing significant. And for what we can see here, it's a little bit more dense than some lower constructions around the side, but not as dense as the highest constructions that you can see here on this busy street. And also kind of gives the transition from these houses to the vacant spots, plots that you can see on top around the other constructions. And one thing that is interesting is that the houses around the place, they are still being lived to the full, at least as the max that they can through the inhabitants. Children go often and play around the area. You can see that there is a lot of encounters that you can go there as a playground. You can find these kind of decorative elements here on some festivities around the city in some times of the year, like it is nowadays, but probably because of coronavirus they are not doing it now. And what is interesting is the dialogue. At least you have this wall here that I'm going to just move forward, backwards, sorry. You can see this wall here that separates the housing complex from these other plots here, and also this tramline that was constructed afterwards. But although he has a massive concrete wall, he still have openings through it. So it didn't disregard completely what is happening there. And as you can see, you can have a glimpse of what is happening from the other side. Of course, he will have to protect the housing complex from the noise, from what was happening on the other side, and or in this case was going to happen, because the tram is a construction that is from the earliest 2000s. It's not exactly from the beginning of this neighborhood, but you can see that there was some kind of consideration with the future development of the site. You also can see appropriation of the people that it's living there. There is not only a place to go and sleep. You can see all the clothes drying out of the windows. You can see the plant pots. You can see that even on the driest of the walls, you have people living there. You have cats, you have dogs, you have life bring from nature, from plants that are put in there. The galleries are not something that is completely sad and dirty looking. Of course, the patina of the time will damage a little bit the building, but you can see that there is still some life on it, and people will still, well, I don't know exactly what is going on now with the coronavirus, but at least at the time that these pictures were taken, people were living and in conversation with the neighbors. They were enjoying the place. They were not just sleeping there. They were just not on the comfort of their houses, but they are also almost checking every single detail. And there is not only white walls on the complex, you have some color on it, not only from the paint that was put on the buildings, but mainly from the people that live the place and the nature that people put there. And of course, you always have that light and shadow treatment that you can find in every single work of Siza, and gives any space some life. These are just some plans of the ground floor. As you can see, basically the idea was to put some bands of dwelling where people were always facing each other, to not have only a blank wall as a neighbor, but the windows from the people opposite to them. Another project that is a milestone on Siza career, from one piece of not only architecture but also in engineering that is it is remarkable indeed, is the Portugal Pavilion, placed in Lisbon by the time of the International Expo in '98. This was a part of Lisbon that was not developed in a way that people were exactly living there. It was an old industrial area, and of course today it's massively densified comparing with what you could see before, but you still can see here these vacant plots that were more or less what was happening around this area, although it was highly industrialized. And by the time late beginning of the 90s, it was basically abandoned and was subject to a development, first through the International Expo and furthermore through what remains from it, and housing and commercial business projects. So this is one of the most impressive pieces of architecture of Siza, in regard that this was for sure not easy to engineer. For what a lot of people say, it was not an easy fight with the engineers, but he proved that it was possible to do this huge cantilever here that you can see support in two sides, both left and right. But it's actually impressive, and although it's monumental, and you can see by the scale that these two people walking by will give you, you have the idea when this is a place for events as well. So you have the idea when there is a market there that is just one normal market space, of course, an indoor market, not an outdoor market. But you have the idea that you actually belong to the place. You don't are just doing an empty square. With this shadow here, it gives a sense of warming to the space. Of course, then there was development around the area. These two towers, I don't even going to comment what they done to the place, because well, it's not even close to what the expo was when it was built. And of course, to make a profit and so on, a lot of developments have to go in height, but there is ways of going in height with nice projects, and then there is this. But the main point here is the building, and as you can see, you have here that huge cantilever that I was mentioning. And you have again the idea of light and shadow through this part of the facade. Here you can see that you have something that is very typical to find in, again, on every single piece of architecture in Portugal, being traditional construction or architect design construction. It's an architecture that lives from shadow, lives from light, lives from the back and forwards of their facade with balconies. And although it's an event place, it's almost for exhibitions, congresses, and so on. You can still have a scale from the outside that, okay, you can see that it's a public building. It's an impressive building, but it's not a scale as absurd as these towers. It's a human scale still present on his works. And even if this huge wall here, one of their purpose is not only to make a gate to this square and therefore the building, you can still see the openings have some nice scale to it. So you are not exactly enter through a massive hall as a door, but you have small openings that are next to it. It's like you are passing through this portal and you humble yourself to go through these doors and to enter this space. And again, after that portal, you have the entrance for the building and you have the same characteristics on those doors / gates. The materials that was chosen here was basically two. This kind of stone, this marble stone, that it's quite vulgar in Portugal. It's used in all the main buildings, institutional buildings, and along the centuries, churches, cathedrals, and so on. It's a marble stone that is characteristic from Portugal, not only, of course, but it's what we call lios, and it's quite normal to find it around any city in Portugal, mainly in the south. You also have the tiles, the ceramic tiles. Although these ones are not exactly with the decorative elements, are completely plain, but they still have the nice glazing that gives some nice light and shadow to the place, and not only a blank canvas. And again, you have always to see through these purples, like you saw on the housing complex. You can see again here, although in a different scale. And you can see that is okay. It's a big building. It's not small, but it's still within the human and a personal scale that you can find within the city. And a nice thing that you can see on this building, and normally people only talk about this part here, the cantilever part, the portal, the great piece of architectural engineering. It's on the back of it, as a contrast from the front of it. You have this kind of garden within small courtyards on the back of the building. So you have again a connection to water that actually was the main thematics of this international exhibition, was the water and the oceans and the nature again. Of course, these are completely planted there, and they were not there before. They were just planted to create these courtyards, but you have the care and the consideration and attention to the detail of having courtyards to have shadow, to have light, and to have light live within architecture. These are some section drawings, and you can see the massive structure necessary to support this huge cantilever here. And then you see the events building, a massive courtyard, something that is very, very easy to find in traditional architecture in Portugal again. And then you have almost the materialization, fragmentation of the building towards small courtyards surrounded by water and trees. This is the other elevation that you didn't see. I only show you the one that has the balconies on it with that are completely covered. And again, it's just a ground floor to have the idea of after finish on the left, the cantilever, the portal, the interior of the Congress and events exhibition rooms. You have an internal courtyard where you can duel around it, and then the materialization of the building towards the small courtyards with gardens and trees. And for last, I have this, and sorry for the long presentation, I have this that is one of, if not my favorite work of Siza. This is the Serralves Museum of Contemporary Art, and is simply something that, for me, it's the continuation of Siza works, where that it starts with the swimming pools, where you don't exactly know where you are going to enter, and when you enter, you can see that after a wall, you can see something that is completely different, as you can going to be able to see on the image to come. So here is the localization in the city. So the ones that we saw before in Porto, you cannot see it here because it's a little bit further north, that town, north to Porto. This is already a part of Porto. This is the west part of Porto. And you can see this massive green area here that is the compounds of this Serralves Foundation. That also have the other buildings besides this, but this is the one that is from Siza ownership. So again, this, although appears to be flat, this terrain is not exactly flat. And when you enter to the building from the street, you basically face a wall. You cannot see exactly. Well, this picture is a little bit old, and the trees surrounding here are a little bit bigger now. But this shows exactly the idea of hidden architecture, hidden building on the other side of this wall. So you cannot imagine what it is if you don't know the work before you enter the place. So as you are going to enter, it's the back of the wall that I just showed you before. You have this kind of annunciation, this kind of portal that annunciates a space to come. And this is what you can see when you enter on your right. On your right, you see this. You start to see that there is a kind of portal here, and this kind of two different scales. You have a more woman scale where you have a clear path, almost lit by the light that is shining there and is giving you the pathway there. And then you have the more open light, more higher ceiling here that leads you to the nature if you don't want exactly to enter right away into the museum. This is the back view of what we just saw. Again, the portal. And as you can see here, even this portal here is a quite nice scale for a person. And here you can see that it's a more humble scale, a more cozy, let's say that, scale that welcomes you to the space to be. And again, this is a view already from the entrance. This is a reverse view of it, but you can see that the light is always showing the pathway to the building, and this treatment of the lights, it's always impressive in all Siza's work, because without the lights, in my opinion, you will have only half of the building. And again, this is of course in part, or if not almost 100% a personal interpretation of it, but you have always shadow and light guiding you through to his work and through the entrance of the buildings. This here is the entrance of the museum. Here you can see the corridor that I was just showing. here on this pathway is the entrance for a shop of the museum and also for the library, which are spaces, all the spaces of this museum, even if they are on the entrance and not exactly facing the garden, you can always see some connection with the nature around it. And as soon as you enter the building, almost after the entrance, you have this huge scale inside of the building. You don't have again the smaller scale, almost of a flat or a house, but you have a protuberance scale that, although it's not humongous, it's not exactly completely disproportional, gives you the sense of a public building, but at the same time a sense that you feel comfortable within it. And of course, there is always light, even if it is not from windows, always facing the surroundings, the green surroundings. You always have light from the sky, if not natural light. You have some kind of inverted tables that can even provide you natural or artificial light on the space. And one thing that it's very nice on this museum, on this piece of architecture, but not only on this project, but other projects from Siza, is the surprise that you always find on every single corner almost of his work. You can always find a nice hallway, a nice staircase that will face some kind of view as the swimming pools. At the end of the corridors, you will have the sea. Here at the end of the corridor, you will have a window, you will have a tree, you will have green from the grass. You always have some kind of surprise by going through the walkways of the building, inside or outside. And although there is this kind of sense of monumentality that you cannot exactly feel from the inside, as soon as you go outside, after that more humble entrance that you have on the museum, you finally can see the monumentality of the building, but it's not something that is concealing. It's the nature is there. Oh, okay, it's a lawn that is a little bit man-made. It's not exactly there by itself, but there is no attempt of concealing what is man-made and what is nature. It's just something that lives well together. The architecture is there, is contemplating the nature is there, and is accepting the architecture that is next to it. And this garden here, this park, it's not exactly a natural park. It was man-made, as you can see. Well, nature doesn't exactly grows this like a ruler with a ruler and a compass, but it's surrounded by green, this white architecture, and the green gives some color to it. So it's all for now. Thank you.
Very nice presentation, David. Thank you. I mean it. I'm not flattering you.
Thank you. Should I give you control again?
Well, if you want, if you don't want something else to say.
No, I can still speaking. And I don't know. You didn't do that, but you also are going to present some bits still about Siza, right?
Well, so, I have three works of his, kind of his latest works. So you know, we were fortunate that you presented his earlier work that I have now. The difference between me and you is that, you know, I didn't see the works. I just contemplated them on the web. But maybe it would be, you know, a good good thing to kind of complete, not complete because there are many other works. He was very prolific, but you know, maybe we can discuss afterwards his work also through the prism of taking a quick look at his latest works in China.
For sure, for sure. Makes sense, and it chronologically makes perfect sense about this.
Yeah, it just happened. Anyway. Okay, let's do that. But there is also I have another. Let me see if I find it quickly. Short film. I have some problems because let me see. Alvaro Siza. Okay, great architects. I think this is a good film. I'll put this on, and then it's not long. Then I'll present those three works by him. So did you? I mean, do I have? I can show it now. You don't have to transfer the.
You already have host rights. I already transferred to you.
Okay, very good.
And there is someone that has the micro with some background noise as well.
No, I know it might be the film itself.
Ah, okay. You need to share the screen.
But I don't know where to find it then. Where is it? I can't find it. I think it's here. Okay. So just a second. Okay. So you see it, right? Do you see the film?
No, Dan, we cannot.
Pardon?
No.
We do not see it.
You don't see it?
No.
Oh, stop. Okay. Okay. I wonder why. Maybe. Why is it that you don't see it? I see it, but you don't see it.
Have you started the share screening? And now we can see your screen.
You see it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll put it from the beginning. So you see it, right?
Yes.
Pardon?
Yes.
So you do see it, right? Don't hear it.
Yeah, we can see it.
Yeah.
It's an excellent museum built in Brazil.
Yeah.
Okay, and now if you are not tired, I'll show you 3 of his last works. Let me see. Okay, Alvaro Siza. Okay. Now, I didn't see, I saw 2 or 3 buildings by him, but I saw him also giving a conference, giving a lecture at Columbia University in New York many years ago. And he said that he was very influenced by a Portuguese poet of whom I didn't know anything. And I learned about him then, that is Fernando Pessoa. And then I became interested in Fernando Pessoa, and truly he is a very important poet. And it seems Alvaro Siza was very, very attached to Fernando Pessoa. I have here a poem by Pessoa, which maybe I would have liked to read. I'm not at my best now, and it's kind of a long poem, but I invite you to read it. It's called The Tobacco Shop. It's one of the best poems by this truly great, but very modest Portuguese poet. And you know, again, it is important, I think, to remember that architecture by itself cannot even survive if it is only self-centered. It needs to open up to other fields, to other activities, intellectual, cultural, artistic. And the fact that an architect of his capacity was so influenced and attached to poetry is inspiring. Anyway, so I'll show you this this presentation. It has the deficiency that I didn't see the buildings myself, but I'll try to compensate a little bit through my imagination. So he said apparently that beauty is the peak of functionality. It's kind of interesting, you know. I'm afraid he could be misunderstood, just as Louis Sullivan was misunderstood when he said form follows function, because essentially Alvaro Siza is a poet, an architect poet, and you know, I'm afraid that those hardcore functionalists will see some justification for the dry functionalism in the words of Alvaro Siza. But it is an expression that is worth reflecting on or about. Some drawings. He drew continuously. He also smokes continuously. He's amazing. He's 86 or 87, and it seems the smoking didn't affect his health. So I wonder what the scientists say about this. I mean, you can find on the YouTube video about his notes books, about his drawings. Peter Tessa, he comments on his drawings, and it's an interesting video that you can find on YouTube. The notes books, the drawings of Alvaro Siza. When you saw at the beginning the movie about his studio, it is amazing how different his studio is from, let's say, American architecture offices. You know, I didn't see a secretary. I didn't even see, I don't know, it almost looked like he was alone with a lot of an appreciable, I mean, significant amount of mess. Very nice, I confess. Anyway, his drawings are very poetical. I mean, don't try it home. If you are a student, don't do this kind of drawings, because your professors might get alarmed and you might fail the project. They might think that they are not serious, but here you have one of the most serious and sensitive architects in the world today drawing like this. This is the building Bonjour Tristesse in Berlin. So he obviously loves to draw. An interesting man. Now his shoulders might not be so wide in reality, but maybe it's a fantasy of his. No, actually, you know, with a certain kind of coat, I guess he could be there almost. Now I don't know what was that. I don't know. Hello, Mr. Siza. So please, if you remember, try to read some poems by Fernando Pessoa. He's great. For example, Fernando Pessoa said in one of his poems, I need God and aspirins. You know, it's true, human life is kind of in between. We need God, but we also need aspirins because God doesn't provide them. Some works, these are 3 works, his latest works actually. Building on Water, I couldn't find out the function of this building. Maybe it's one of these buildings that China is building without a real function and even without a real need, but they have the money to pay an architect like Alvaro Siza, so he built it. It's probably a museum, you know, I mean, what else could it be? But it's very nice. They build it, of course, they built it, and they build anything, these Chinese. It's amazing. It's on water. Circulation is very important in Siza's work. You can see these corridors or these passages, and these. It's something worth reflecting on, and I'm sure there are critics who commented about this. Sometimes I was a little bit worried about so much whiteness, but you can see also a red building here later on. I am a little bit, I get tired when I see too much whiteness, but this is me. Fortunately, David was right. The shadow plays an important role, light and shadow. So there are the dialectics between light and shadow are important in his work. You remember the beginning, that the short film where, you know, he quoted Frank Lloyd Wright, who said, you know, it would be very nice to do architecture if we didn't have to place windows. And then he said the window is the most important part of the building. I don't know, maybe, I don't know. I mean, there are buildings without windows, like the Hindu temples in India. They don't have windows and they are still great architectures. But he is right in a way, and he's very careful about how he places his windows. They are not really placed at random. Also, I don't know if you know, and I don't even know if it's true, but I read somewhere where somebody told me that he's teaching at the School of Architecture in Porto, but he's not teaching so-called architecture, he's teaching construction, which is very interesting, and actually I think is beautiful. You know, because by teaching construction, he also has to know a lot about construction, so that's good. He could have easily, you know, he could have taught, you know, he could have, I'm beginning to forget English. If he taught, you know, an atelier, a studio, he would have been brilliant, but he chose the hard, you know, he had the hard choice to teach construction.
Then can I say just one thing?
Please.
I don't know exactly if he's still teaching, but yes, you're completely right. He was teaching constructions. I don't know if it is still teaching. And that building that you are showing, that building belongs to a chemical company. That is an extension of the company. Basically, that is offices and so on for the employees of that chemical company.
So it's not a museum. Thank
No,
you.
no, it's basically a working place, and very nice working place.
Indeed, yes, it is. I was almost sure it was a museum. Anyway, yeah. Now we have finally a museum also in China by him and Carlos how do you pronounce Castaneira? Castaneira.
Castanheira is also
Yes.
my surname. No connection.
Yeah. Yes, it's the same name. Thank you. They cooperate now in fact, two projects that I show here. The last two are made by them together. Unfortunately, I had the sections and the elevations, but I don't know why I didn't include them. And the plans are a little small. I was in a hurry, and I apologize. They should have been bigger. But it's a big museum, as big as China itself, and it's very well handled. I want to insist on you can see how big this wall is if you compare with the human silhouette. And I like the fascia of the building. It's not just one. It has a vibration, and it's very well chosen. So the reddish building is his or theirs. Yes, he's very skillful. With a simple prism, essentially, he's able to achieve architectonic poetry because of the proportions and how he handles the cuts into the prism. It's almost amazing. But I have to say it, I saw an apartment building in Venice by him, which I didn't like at all. It was very, I don't know, very rationalistic and very kind of tense and very rigid. But I don't know. I mean, maybe I was also in a certain mood, and so it matters. Maybe myself, I was very rigid at that time, and I didn't respond properly to his building. Well, China has quite a collection of signature buildings, so to speak. The greatest architects today built in China and build in China. So I can only envy them. I love these, as opposed to Daniel Lipskin, that Jewish Museum in Berlin, he does use these diagonals of light, but they seem to be more resolute and less fragmented. They're actually exquisite, and they don't seem, I didn't study because I didn't have the time, but they don't seem to be really capricious. They're very well positioned. So it's enough drama in this big space just because of those two diagonals of light. There is a very beautiful house that he built, and I couldn't find it in the hurry to prepare this PowerPoint, but I suggest to you to search for, I don't even know how it is called, maybe it would be one of his very earliest projects, and it was published in L'Architecture d'aujourd'hui and other magazines. I don't know, maybe it was even built for himself. Very, very nice house. I don't know how else to describe it. I have to find it. And in that house that I mentioned, he uses a window that is kind of traditional, where you don't have a big piece of glass, but it is divided in little squares, like in, the traditional form of, windows or architectures. I like that. Kenneth Frampton said something, both, I think, no, I'm wrong. He said it about Carlos Scarpa, but maybe is appropriate somehow for Siza too. That he said about Carlos Scarpa that he made an infinite effort to remain within the limits or the framework of tradition. In Siza's work, tradition is not so explicitly present, but then also in the work of Carlos Scarpa isn't either. But I do believe that if one studies carefully the work of Alvaro Siza, sees that there is emancipation, modern emancipation, but there is also a deep sense of respect for context, as David already said it very well, and even in other words, there is invention, but there is also some sense of continuity. This is a good work. And now the last one, which is actually the one you saw in the video in Porto Alegre in Brazil, is this one. Quite adventurous, those, connections moving out of the mass of the building very capriciously and freely, and at the same time you cannot say that they are without a reason. Very interesting. A critic said that studying his drawings, that he's employing modes of representation that are not common, that, he studies the building from various points of, perspectival points, but kind of unexpectedly, that you can see that he's studying the morphology of the building in a very original way. And that's why he gets these surprising, configurations, spatial and in terms of how the building looks like. Now he's one of the best architects today, no doubt. And so very different from Frank Lloyd Wright, who also uses ramps and so on, but it's so different from the Guggenheim. I like the plans too, and the section. Maybe this is the last image. Now I have another work. I forgot the chapel in Portugal, Capella do Monte. It is, I think, a newer work, which is also excellent. And I'm happy that we also have a religious building. He built several chapels and churches. Very simple, very primal, but it's not dry. It's amazing what he does with very, very simple elements. I mean, without good proportions and you know, good handling of light and so on, this could have been a banal building, and it's the very opposite. It is architectural poesis. And inside, you can see, with very simple means, he does a lot. It's a very pure, you know, spiritual place. Beautiful, you know, I mean, you know, in less skillful hands, this could have easily been a dry interior or a dry building, but it's not. Just one window, you know, but he placed it correctly. He placed it well, it's more than correctly. Look at the details. There are incredible things here, very sophisticated, very subtle, you know, like here. And I imagine the drawings are his. Look at that stripe of light. Very nice, that's it. Well, thank you very much. We did it, we celebrated. Maybe we could have done more for Gaudi, but still we paid homage to them, to both of them. And, you know, there are still 11 people here. Let me see if I know them. Some of them I do. I do know who Katarina is. And I don't know, I know David now. No, there are two David here. Eduardo, Mauricio, and okay. So if you want to, you know, say anything, comment anything, please do so.
I actually loved this conference because even though that Gaudi and Siza were separated by 7 years in their lifetime, I mean, you could see the similarities. For example, the light, the way that they used light for Gaudi at the Casa Batlló, where he wanted to have the same level of lighting, and he used the tiles, the more colorful tiles in the interior courtyard, and the less colored tiles closer to the ground floor in order to have the same lighting. And Siza played with light as well. I also love the fact that they both use local materials, and that's I think another similarity as well, or their love of structure, because you could see in Sagrada Familia the way Gaudi used the pillars, and maybe you all know this, but the density of the materials is lesser by the way it grows. I'm referring to the pillars in Sagrada Familia, which resemble the trees. I also love the fact that they both consider nature. Gaudi even actually integrates nature in the architecture, while Siza is making doors towards it. And I don't know. For me, Gaudi was the moment that I realized that I wanted to become an architect. When I first saw Barcelona for the first time, I was severely impressed, and he was ahead of his time. I mean, he was paying attention to the environment before his time, and consider a lot of factors into his architecture. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Anna. Anyone else wants to say something?
Can I show one project?
Sure.
I'm not sure if it was this one that you were mentioning or not. The house that you were mentioning. If it is the Beirut house, it's kind of yellow house from. If you give me those
Sure.
permissions, like.
Yes, yes. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Please.
That was the wrong David.
You know, one of you has to change the name, but okay. So.
Well spotted.
But I'm confused. The other one doesn't. I don't understand. How do I do it now? Because
I know him. I'm going to talk with him.
okay.
I'm going to try to.
In the meanwhile, if I could just have a word as well.
For sure.
I found out about this conference because of David. He told me, and I think it's really nice that we are celebrating the life and the works of these two great architects, and this has been very interesting. Thank you. So thank you for the experience. And I also would like to remark that I think David brought some very traditional and very emblematic works of Siza, but I'm happy that the Professor Dan also included at the end some of his more recent works that are a bit more eclectic or diverge a bit from the Portuguese norm. So it's good to see a span of a work that's maybe a 50, 60 years career that he has.
Right.
And it was very nice to see the beginning and the more recent works. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
I already am the host again.
Well, I don't know. I mean.
No worries. Then was solved. It is a former colleague of mine. He just passed me the.
Okay, very good.
Let's see if you. I believe that you can see the
yes,
screen
that's
now.
the one. Yes, that's the house.
This is a very nice project. Nature completely overcome now the project, the architecture itself, but it's still very nice. I'm going to try to maximize. Well, you cannot exactly see bigger than this. Sorry about that. But
I love this house.
His house. It was a private commission that he got at the time from a major from the army, I guess.
So it was not his own house, right?
No. It was a private commission that he got. The client, it's written here. I don't know if you can read.
That's not for my eyes, but anyway.
But
yeah.
it's a very nice house inside. It's a little bit different from what you normally see on Siza's work.
Yes.
But you can still see his trace on it.
Yes, I love the plans too. It's interesting in a way that he didn't. He kind of left this like a singular, experiment in a way.
Yes, yes, other smaller projects like this that are very singular. I think that when they are smaller projects, he maybe before at least he would try to experiment and so on, because would give a better control since the scale was very small comparing with big institutional buildings. Therefore, he could have a different grip on it.
What I like about this house is that it's more hybrid and is in a way less pure. You know, it's and I don't know why he didn't try in some other projects too. Well, he did it in Berlin, which is not white, that building, and I like that building, that apartment building in Berlin. No, his work is very rich, and I discovered today, but it was too late. On Wikipedia, there is on the German Wikipedia there is a list with all his works, and it's very, very long. I mean, maybe he has more works or projects than even Frank Lloyd Wright. I don't know. I'm joking a little bit, but no, he did a lot of works. Some built, some just as projects, but yeah, you know, we are dealing here with a very prolific and devoted architect.
And by the way, out of curiosity, that Museum of Contemporary Art that I show, the museum now for some years now also have all the archive of built work of Siza. So if someone goes to Portugal for some reason, to Porto, and wants to discover more about his project, that is a place to go. You can access all the drawings and so on, the ones that are already built and so.
Right. Also, I have to say that maybe you know, and Alexandra probably knows, he's a doctor honoris causa of the university here, and he's a kind of in friendly relationship with the school. And the president of the school told me that when the students from here went to Porto, went to Portugal, he actually waited for them with his own car, or I don't know, he waited for them on the airport. So it was very, very nice. I mean, he had already a certain age, but you know, it shows that he's a warm and considerate man, and with empathy. That's very nice. I mean, how many star architects would do something like this? I don't think too many.
Indeed, even in my universities here, in 1 year, one tutor, they had a trip to Portugal, and he was very welcoming for the students to have a talk with them and describe his work. I think he's very keen to share with young architects as well.
Yes. We are probably talking about the same trip, but yes, very nice, yes. Well, we can only wish both of them, Antoni Gaudi and Alvaro Siza, happy birthday. They didn't die, obviously, we talk about them. Somebody said, I think that artist Pansky, if I pronounce well his name, he said that people die two deaths. One is when one dies, and then the second time when nobody talks any longer about them. So in that sense, you know, they didn't die because we still talk about them, and we'll talk about them, you know, even, I mean, people will still talk about them even after, you know, maybe we are not here any longer. Anyway, this is the power of art, and I want to invite you next week, well, even tomorrow, but I don't know if I have the power to do it. Tomorrow will be 92 years since SIAM, the first International Architectural Congress on Architecture, and I want to be polemical towards Le Corbusier and approach the subject of a different kind of urbanism. An urbanism that is not based on the straight line that connects A to B, but more kind of like medieval urbanism, zigzagging just like the donkeys that Le Corbusier hated. And then next week, on the 1st of July, there will be Piet Kramer, a very important member of the School of Amsterdam, quite an interesting architectural movement besides the steel. And there are others. I mean, there are too many. In fact, I'm beginning to regret that I began to do this, because now I cannot stop, because, you know, then they will reproach me. They will say, why did you celebrate Gaudi and Alvaro Siza and you didn't celebrate me? So I'm joking, of course, but I also, and David actually suggested this, and I totally agree. I welcome any kind of participation. If any of you would like to make a presentation, please do so. This should be a collective, a hetero forum, you know, where different voices contribute and different minds and different sensibilities contribute to a dialogue, and that's how it should be. And we had Alexandra presented very nicely about India, now David about the works of Siza. So let's do this, because I think, and we'll also have again international contributors. There is an architect in Vienna. She wants to present, but she's busy now, but she will do it soon, about her firm called Green Skills. And we had a nice presentation a few days ago from Indonesia. So it's actually very nice. And, you know, Zoom is functioning approximately well. So let's do it. If you want, I could send you suggestions. If you write me an email, I could send you a list with possible celebrations, which are pretexts actually, and you can choose from there to talk about, you know, anyone you like. And not only that, if you want to talk about, let's say, architecture and introversion, a subject, or architecture and hostility, or architecture and I don't know, you can become more pragmatic and think about the climate, or I don't know. We did it, architecture and music, but you can choose any subject, and let's bring in variety, you know. I think it would be very nice if we meet, you know, from time to time, that is every day, and make presentations, you know, even spontaneous. You don't even have to announce them necessarily. So if you have my email address, but you don't even need it, you don't even need to contact me. The problem is, I don't know if you receive the messages, but essentially every single day at this hour, 3 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, we meet here on Zoom. So if anyone wants tomorrow to bring in something, even discuss a project, a school project, or a personal research, or some kind of you know, adventurous project that no one wants to see, let's see it and let's enjoy it and let's discuss it. That's my idea, to be truly an agora for architecture that is very, you know, democratic. And here we can show things that, you know, you cannot easily show in a school or in an office or I don't know where. What do you think?
Well, I have already another one that I suggested to you before. I simply didn't get that one ready yet, but just give a date that I can present it, and that's fine. Yeah. I don't mind to do it another one next week or week after. Doesn't matter.
Sure. Choose any day you want.
I don't know, one day that you will not have a presentation already prepared.
No, it's okay. You do what you want to do whenever you want. You know, I welcome spontaneity, and you know.
I will drop you an email then.
Sure.
And then.
Sure. What about the others? Alexandra, Anna, Katarina, the other David. You You are welcome
Well,
to present anything. Eduardo, Rita.
I'd actually like to work or research something and talk about it. But right now we're doing exams, so maybe after the beginning of July, I'd like to get involved in this
Sure,
more.
sure, sure. There is no rush, it's fine. And any kind of subject really that interests you, let's bring it in. What I do is, because this is my specialty, I find, so birthdays or the day when an important architect usually died, but also events, not, so, but you can choose any kind of, again, you have complete freedom. Just find a subject that interests you, where you would work with pleasure, you would make a presentation, which you do with passion, and it will be fine. It could be about anything, really. Okay, if no one else wants to say anything, maybe we should say goodbye. It's almost 3 hours, almost 3 hours since we started, and I'm happy I was not alone. I'm afraid every day when I start this, I say, what if no one shows up? But people do show up. Yesterday, there were many people, or the other day, not yesterday, when was the Indonesians? No, yesterday, I'm beginning to forget. Yeah, there were about 100 people when the Indonesians spoke. Also, they will invite other architects from Indonesia to present their work. So interesting things are happening. So we feel less alone, although we are condemned to the social distancing. But paradoxically, we are more united now thanks to Zoom. And as I said, tomorrow I will receive a message from me. Those of you who have my who are who receive my emails about how did I call it, zoom zagging from zigzagging, zoom zagging together with a donkey, about the new urbanism that I try to advocate, which is the very opposite of the one advocated 100 years ago almost by Le Corbusier and the others. Anyway, I'll send you what Le Corbusier wrote about the donkey. Strange man, Le Corbusier, he truly ravished the poor donkey, and then he wanted to erect a monument for the donkey in India. I understand his dualities, because I'm also a Libra man, and I know the big tensions of this zodiacal sign, which is very unfortunate, because we are not balanced, but we long for balance. Maybe we can talk about architecture and the zodiac, a subject that maybe nobody addressed. What do you think? Zodiacal architecture.
Actually, I did a project for last year for architectural language, and we actually discovered that the pyramid of Louvre, done by Pei, actually contained some of the characteristics of the zodiacal signs there, as I recall about that project. So it may be interesting.
You mean IMP is a zodiacal sign, or?
No, there were some correlations between the positions of the zodiacal signs in his architecture there.
Really, I'm surprised. anyway, okay. All right, so, you know, if you don't want to say anything else, maybe we could say goodbye, or it's up to you. I'm not trying to rush anything, but
I will say goodbye for today.
pardon?
I will say goodbye for today.
Okay, so I do the same, and I thank Rita, Eduardo, David, Alexandra, and Anna. And we'll see each other again. I repeat, every single day at 3 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, the Zoom, the Zoom platform will be open. So you are welcome. Even if you don't receive messages about the so-called program, something will happen, God willing. So you are welcome even tomorrow if you want, if you have the time, and if you don't care if you pass the exams in school or not. And I hope you do not fail your exams.
Well, I hope that as well, Dan. Thank you as well. Thank you again for the great presentation, and thank you, David, as well.
Okay.
And enjoy your evening.
Okay, you too. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, all of you. Bye.
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 Thank you for your participation. Bye.